Thank you. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I'm going to take a bit of a different direction on where we're going, and it's Ann's fault, because she mentioned something about we need to begin to look at some new theories and new ideas. I'd like to offer one, but I want to start by asking a question, and I want you to think about this very seriously, and that is, why are you here? Why do you do what you do? In other words, what are you trying to get your people, for those of you who are academics, your students to, for those of you who are researchers, what are we trying to actually do for and with people? And the reason I ask this, and it's a very serious question, is that it really was Dr. David Cooperrider who put it this way, and I love what Cooperrider says, and that is, individuals and organizations move in the direction of what they focus on. Individuals and organizations move in the direction of what they focus on. And if we as a community do not understand and do not really grasp what we're working toward, we have a problem. Because we're not exactly sure what we're trying to do. And what I'd like to do today is I'd like to offer a different focus. Because I believe we really don't have one. And I'd like to offer a theory, and I'm going to go very, very quickly through the theory of it, and take you through those steps. But I'd like to offer this, and that is, what if what we're trying to do is unleash the personal greatness of every single individual that we work with? And you might be thinking, oh, wait, personal greatness, he's going too far, where is this coming from? Well, I would like to blame it on this person. And I don't know if some of you know who this is. This is Dr. Angela Duckworth. She is an associate professor at the University of Pennsylvania. She is also a MacArthur Genius Award winner. She is also the author of the current book, Grit, which is taking the world by storm. I had the wonderful privilege of Angela was my advisor for my capstone thesis. And Angela studies more than grit. Angela studies achievement. And what Angela kept pushing me about was that we were stopping short, that within the concept of not only positive psychology, but psychology, our end goal was stopping short. And Angela didn't want to just study people getting to the next level. She said, how do we really begin to study people who excel, learn from that, and apply it to everybody, so that everybody has that opportunity to unleash the absolute best they can be? And so it's with apologies to Angela. She does not know that I'm doing this. She'd probably really go after me for doing this. And my apologies to her, because she said after I finished my capstone I should publish it. And I did not. I went back to doing my work in consulting so that I could pay for my degree from Penn. So sometimes you have to do those things. So where does the whole concept come from? When we begin to think about psychology, but specifically positive psychology, where does the idea come from? And Ann touched on this, and I just want to go a little bit deeper because I want to challenge it. Really where it comes from is Aristotle. The positive psychologists love to quote Aristotle and love to quote the whole concept of eudaimonia. That really what we're going after is eudaimonia, that concept of eudaimonia, which is very, very loosely translated as happiness. That is where it's translated. And yet at the same time, I really want to look at this a little bit, because if you look at this paragraph, and I pulled this right out of Nicomachean Ethics, it emphasizes eudaimonia is living in the most excellent manner and performing activities with excellence. And it's not enough in the view of Aristotle to live a virtuous life. Eudaimonia is living a virtuous life to a degree of excellence. Now, I don't know about you, but when I studied this, I began to look at it and said, this is more than happiness. We're going further, and we need to go further. So what I'd like to do today is challenge us, how do we begin to look at that in a further way? Because here's what has happened. Many different concepts or end goals of positive psychology have been offered from some of the leaders that are out there. So self-actualization, flourishing, self-determination, authentic happiness, subjective well-being, which all of them are good. And I would challenge the room on this. Are they far enough? Are they really enough? Because even from the very beginning and the foundation of positive psychology, Chris Peterson, in determining and talking about positive psychology, said this: the most basic assumption that positive psychology urges is that human goodness and excellence are as authentic as disease, disorder, and distress. So Peterson, even from the early stages, wasn't just talking about happiness. Peterson was talking about excellence. So how do we begin to take this a little bit further? Where do I come from on this? My studies really started back at Penn, but they go further. My laboratory, I will apologize, by the way, to some of the researchers in the room. I love researchers. You are the ones who give us the foundation, but I work with corporations, I work with organizations, I work in cities. And what I do is I take the work that you do and I throw it against the wall and I bend it and break it and twist it and see if it works. And so that's my job. But I love the researchers. So what I'd like to offer is this. If we begin to look at what could be a new way of thinking of positive psychology, what could be a new goal that could transform the work we do, I would offer personal greatness. And it can be defined as the optimal positive use of the resources and capabilities of an individual. And actually I realized, even as I typed this, I realized this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, I thought I put two words backwards. It actually should be the positive optimal use. So please forgive my typo there. The positive optimal use of the resources and capabilities of an individual. Now let me very, very briefly take you through this, of why some of these words are in here. When I first came up with this definition, I actually have a group of individuals that I survey, and I sent it out. And somebody brought up, as they always do whenever you talk about psychology, they brought up the ultimate personification of evil. So who is that? So we think about ultimate personification of evil. Who do people always bring up as the exception of the rule? It's Hitler. Every single time. I call it the Hitler effect. It does this work with Hitler. Dr. Martin Seligman, both Robert and I have had the privilege, Marty was our professor, so we've had the opportunity to dialogue with Marty a lot about this, and somebody asked Marty about the aspects of positive psychology. Did Hitler fit all of those aspects? And at one point he said, yes, which I thought kind of frightening. Is that what we're building toward? So somebody said the same thing about my definition of greatness. Would Hitler fit in the definition? So I sent back a very quick survey to individuals about this concept, and I said, what is your concept about greatness? 98% of the people that I sent to, and this was over 400 individuals, so it is a small sampling, said that they believed that greatness would always have a positive effect on people around them and society. And so that's why I purposely added the word positive. And it's interesting, it's something that I've studied, and I've named it, I've called it the assumption of positive effect. That there is, and this is, I believe, is a good thing, there is within our society and in our world a natural belief that when people use their gifts and abilities, it will be used for good. And I think that's a good thing for us to have as human beings, that is our natural propensity. But for the other parts of this definition, what does it mean? Optimal, obviously, what is the best you can achieve with what you can do? Resources. What are you born with? Bless you. What are you born with? All of a sudden, there is a whole play of how genetics fit into all this. And I think too often in psychology, we're not taking that into consideration. Those are things that people are given. That's the pool you're playing with. That's the basis. And sometimes that can't be changed. Those are resources. We draw from them. And then on top of the resources, then, what are the capabilities? What is someone able to do with their resources, and how do they take them further? So, for example, when I gave this definition, I was talking to a principal of a special needs school, and I gave him this definition, and he said, that is the first time I've heard anybody talk about psychology in a way that my students could actually achieve their best. He said, because I have some that can pick up a violin and they can play a piece that would melt your heart, and they cannot tie their shoes. So With their resources, however, they're taking their capabilities and taking them to the limit. They would be achieving their personal greatness. That is exactly why I believe we need to start looking beyond where we are right now. And so what does that mean? And I'd like to I'm trying to keep you on schedule, so I'm going to get you back on track and keep this a little bit shorter. So what does this mean in practice? Where does all this come from? As I said, I've had the opportunity, my company, A&S Global Management Consulting, we work around the world. So I work with everything from Fortune 500 companies to small nonprofits and large nonprofits and basically cities. And so what we're trying to do now is find and I will glibly call it the greatness cocktail. We are trying every single different intervention that has been used within positive psychology. And it is interesting because since this conference says positive psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy, we also use a lot of the work from CBT. And what we're trying to do is find out not what gets people to well-being, not what gets people to okay, because I love your reference, Anne, you were talking about it. We still are looking at positive psychology with a deficit mindset. It's kind of like, it's good enough. We got them out of this. Oh yeah? But did we get them here? Did we get them to their potential? Did we get them to the fullest? And so that's where the challenge begins to be. So I'm working with a couple of organizations right now, the larger organizations. So I will tell you this, we've done a 4-year work with one of the largest financial institutions in the world, where they have actually allowed us to do workshops on personal greatness for their employees. So we have worked with approximately 1,200 employees a year and have now started tracking them as to how they succeed or what new things they try to do. And at this point, the only thing that's coming in is we get personal emails directly from these individuals saying, I'm doing things I never ever thought I could do before. Isn't that really what we want to do? Is totally unleash what people can do. But even in a small scale, what can some of this mean? I want to tell you a very quick story. I live in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And Asbury Park has a really interesting distinction. For those who don't know Asbury Park, it is on the Jersey Shore. It is rebounding. It had been quite a turned down place for quite a while, and it is coming back very, very strongly, very dramatically. And yet there is and literally it is the other side of the tracks in Asbury. And so there is another side of the tracks that socioeconomically is much more challenged. And so some of us in the community started saying, how do we reach out and help that group? And I and my associates also started saying, how do we start not just getting them to good? How do we unleash their potential? How do we unleash their greatness? So one of the programs we actually did with Big Brothers Big Sisters was we did a program where children were invited, especially children from that section, were invited to come and write for the summer on Saturdays. So I know for a lot of these kids, I know they were forced by their parents to come there. So we got a lot of this. And what they did was we did gratitude. So we used the gratitude interventions. We used a lot about choice and wove in a lot of these interventions. There one of these girls that was there the first day, Athea, she's 11 years old. She came in the first day, arms crossed, head down, wouldn't participate in almost anything, would not participate in the gratitude exercises, would not dialogue with anybody. When we asked her to write, because this was about writing, and she said, I really can't. And so what did we do? We set some short-term goals. We'll try to write a sentence. Long story short, this goes through the summer. And gradually, Athea begins to change because she sees there's no judgment and she's allowed to write what she wants to write. Well, at the end of the summer, what we decided to do was we took all of these children's writings and we self-published a book. And then we invited their parents and the larger community, and we set up the table, and we had these children sit behind it, and as authors, sign their book. And to watch Athea, who now interacted with everybody that came to her, eyes focused, just fully attentive. And we had heard when she had come out of the school, she wasn't performing well in school, that she wasn't interacting with the other kids, to see this alive young woman. Doesn't end there. Athea goes back to school 2 weeks after the book signing, makes an appointment with the principal, walks in and says, you know what? We need a school newspaper, and I'm going to be the editor, and I'll start it. And what we have heard now, that was actually quite a few years ago, what we've heard now is Athea's about to get into high school and has got herself a scholarship. And nobody ever thought she could do it. This is the kind of thing we need to be doing, is looking at how do we get people not just to okay, not just to happy, not just to well-being, but to unleashing their absolute best. So I guess what I want to do, and I'm going to kind of echo a little bit what Oakley said, and then I think I'm done, right? Okay. I'll echo what Oakley said is, can you imagine if our goal would be to unleash the greatness of every single person on this planet, to find out what they needed physically, to be able to survive, but also mentally to be able to thrive, to take that step to the next level, to be able to look at how they could be at their absolute best. We could change the world. I don't believe positive psychology simply is about us making people happy. I've always disliked that part. I think it's about changing lives, and I think it's about changing the world. And hopefully you agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you.